Whenever the Apostle Paul wrote his letters, he almost always kicked things off with the same two words, grace and peace. Now, on the surface, it just feels like a standard hello, right? But it's so much more than that. It's a complete theological statement, a really powerful formula for a life of faith. So today, we're going to unpack why this simple little greeting is actually one of the most important phrases he ever wrote.
You can see it right here in Philippians 1 verse 2. This wasn't just some standard sign-on Paul used. For the early church, hearing this phrase was a radical declaration. It was basically a confession of faith that pointed to the source of everything they believed in and outlined the two core pillars of their entire worldview.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with why this is way more than just a greeting. Then, and this is crucial, we'll get into the specific order of the words themselves. From there, we'll have to redefine what peace actually means in this context, look at how that peace was even made possible, and finally, wrap up with the mission this simple phrase gives to every single person who hears it.
Yeah, this is not just a simple, hey, how are ya? By starting with grace and peace, Paul is making a bold proclamation right out of the gate. He's establishing that every good thing, all hope, all stability, it all flows from these two realities, and they both come from a single source, God. It's like a powerful sermon packed into just two words.
Okay, but here's where it gets really, really interesting. Have you ever noticed the order? He never says peace and grace. It is always grace and peace. And that's not just some stylistic choice he made. It's the entire key to the message. The sequence is everything. So the big question is, why this specific order?
Well, it's because the order reflects a fundamental spiritual law, a kind of divine cause and effect. It's not random at all. It's a theological roadmap. Paul is laying out what he believes is the only path to true, lasting peace, and it absolutely has to happen in this exact sequence. The logic here is so simple, but it's incredibly profound. Grace is the cause. It's the unearned, unmerited gift of God that we get through Jesus, and peace. Peace is the effect. It's the direct result that flows from receiving that grace. You can't flip them. You just cannot have true peace without first receiving grace. It doesn't work that way. Think about it for a second. If peace came from our own efforts or having perfect circumstances, the greeting might be something like hard work and peace, or maybe prosperity and peace. But it's not. The fact that grace always comes first is our constant reminder that peace isn't something we can achieve or build. It's a gift we have to receive. So, if peace is the result of grace, then what exactly is this peace he's talking about? I think for most of us, our modern idea of peace is, the absence of conflict or maybe a feeling of inner calm. But the biblical definition, it's far deeper and way more revolutionary than that. You see, biblical peace isn't about the absence of problems. It's about the presence of a restored wholeness. At its very core, it means the repair of a broken relationship, and specifically, the broken relationship between humanity and God. The contrast is pretty stark, isn't it? Worldly peace is so fragile. It vanishes the second trouble shows up. But the peace Paul is talking about, that's about being in a right relationship with God, and that creates a foundational security that can hold steady even when you're in the middle of chaos. It's a deep stability, not just a temporary feeling. So why was this restoration even necessary in the first place? Well, the story of Scripture tells us that sin created this massive fracture. And it wasn't just a small crack. It didn't just break our connection with God. It completely shattered our relationships with each other and even broke the harmony of the created world itself. That, right there, is the fundamental loss of peace. So if the problem is a shattered relationship, the solution has to be reconciliation, right? It's the only way. But how could a hostile humanity possibly repair its connection with a perfect God? The honest answer is, we couldn't. It was impossible. God had to do it for us. This verse from Romans is just staggering when you really let it sink in. It says that the work of reconciliation didn't happen after we got our act together. No, it happened while we were enemies. God took the first step. He was the one who bridged the gap through Christ's sacrifice, and he was moved not by our worthiness, but by his grace. And these three words spoken by Jesus on the cross are the declaration that the work was done. It was complete. The price was paid. The barrier of sin that caused all that separation was torn down for good. The work required to restore our relationship with God was fully and perfectly accomplished in that moment. And right here, Paul connects all the dots for us. He says, because we have been justified by faith, and that's another way of saying receiving God's grace, the result is that we have peace with God. And there it is again, that divine order. Grace first, then peace. The relationship is restored.
But hold on, the story doesn't end there. Receiving this peace isn't a passive thing where we just sit back and enjoy it. No, it comes with a brand new purpose. It actually transforms us from being just recipients of this reconciliation into being active ambassadors of it.
See, God didn't just fix our relationship with Him for our own private benefit. He immediately gives us a job to do, the ministry of reconciliation. This peace is way too good to keep to ourselves. It's actually designed to flow through us to the world around us.
So what does that even look like in real life? Well, it means first, we cherish the sacrifice that made it all possible. Then we actively enjoy the peace, that restored relationship that God gives us. And then we turn outward. We help other people find that exact same peace, always remembering that Christ's grace is big enough for our family, our friends, and our entire community.
So the next time you hear someone say grace and peace, remember, it's not just a nice greeting. It's the entire story of salvation packed into 2 words. It's the story of a restored relationship with God that we receive as a free gift and are then called to give away. Which, of course, leaves us with one final, crucial question. Who will you share this peace with?